Why do the wicked thrive while the honest suffer? It's because most people are generally decent and truthful. We trust others to act the same, leaving us vulnerable to those who deceive without remorse. Gina Giannopoulos, now Gina Giannopoulos McMillan, showed me this hard truth. I'm Alex McMillan, her ex-husband. One day my Lexus had engine trouble. Dominic, who's serviced my cars for a decade, called me in for a talk, leading me to a private office at Marshall Motors. "Alex, the engine's fine, just the belt's loose. But there's a problem with the brake line," Dominic said gravely. "It's been tampered with. There's enough fluid for normal stops, but if you needed to brake hard or go down a steep hill, it could have been disastrous." I was stunned. 6 months ago, Gina and I moved into a sleek new house in the suburbs, nestled in quiet woods, but at the bottom of a steep cul-de-sac. If I had driven home, it could have been fatal. "Dominic, keep quiet about this for now. Have you fixed it?" "Not yet. This is serious. I need to call the police," he replied. "Hold off," I suggested. "Take a photo, document everything, but let's wait. Leave the car in the backyard, and I'll rent one of your old cars for a few days. There are security cameras, right?" Dominic hesitated, then nodded. "Yes, there are. Whoever's behind this will likely try to cover their tracks once they realize I'm alive. I suspect they'll attempt to steal the car from the parking lot soon, so I'm holding off on involving the police until then. Meanwhile, we'll have camera footage to provide them." After leaving the rented blue Corolla in my driveway, I took the day off to contemplate the attempt on my life, likely motivated by money. As president of Apex, a $6.8 billion software company, I suspected it was part of an attack on the company. With Carmelita, our cook and housekeeper, away for the day and the house quiet, I pondered potential culprits and motives. Calling Jeff Denham, head of the security firm Apex employs, I arranged for a discreet audit of our systems and financial records. I provided Jeff with a temporary password for access and instructed my secretary, Meredith, to facilitate their visit. With preparations in motion, I continued my investigation, though I didn't expect to find anything significant on our home computer. Just out of curiosity, I attempted to access Gina's files, including her email, only to find them all password protected. It struck me odd. What could she be hiding, unless it was something innocent like planning a surprise party? I resolved to inquire about it later. Around 4:30, as I sipped tea in the kitchen, Gina entered and was visibly shocked by my presence. Her reaction was unlike anything I'd seen before. Her mouth dropped, she turned pale, and she leaned heavily against the doorframe. "Alex, why are you here?" Gina asked, startled. I gently reminded her that I lived there. She composed herself and joined me at the table, mentioning my early arrival and the absence of my car outside. In an instant, I considered telling her about the brake line, but settled for mentioning an engine issue and leaving the car at Dominic's. I rented one of their cars, explaining the vehicle in the driveway. Initially, I hesitated to tell her the truth, thinking I didn't want to worry her. But upon reflection, I realized it was more than that. Her shock in seeing me puzzled me deeply, lingering in my thoughts. Gina recovered, suggesting dinner plans, and excused herself to shower. As I heard the water running, I decided to tidy up and change before our evening out. As I approached the almost closed bedroom door, I overheard Gina speaking urgently on the phone. Why would she call while showering? Her conversation, though brief, made me pause. She was talking to Jeff Denham, my security-savvy friend, known as Dowdle since 8th grade. Gina had picked up my nickname for him, confirming his identity. After she hung up and headed to the bathroom, I waited, pondering the implications. Was there a connection between Gina, Jeff, and the car incident? Despite the whirlwind of thoughts, it all seemed improbable. Gina and I were married for 8 years. I was 46. She was 37. Having been married once before at 20, with 2 kids living far away, I first encountered Gina during her tour of Apex offices. Intrigued, I orchestrated a lunch date through a mutual friend, which proved successful. Gina exuded effortless beauty, standing nearly 6'5" tall with raven black hair, dark eyes, and a confident demeanor. Despite my age and average looks, I knew my success played a part in her attraction, and I was fine with that. With a solid prenup in place ensuring fairness in case of divorce, I believed our love was genuine and our life together promising. Gina brought me joy, despite her extravagant spending habits and flirtatious nature. Though she was adventurous in bed and in life, recent events had cast doubt on our relationship, especially with my friend Dowdle possibly involved. I discreetly investigated Apex's finances, withholding information about the car break-in from both Gina and Dowdle. That evening, at dinner with Gina, I concealed my anxiety, knowing our night would end love-makingly. The next morning, I woke early and swiftly prepared for a trip to Los Angeles. With a packed bag, flight booked, and limo arranged, I woke Gina to inform her of my sudden departure. "Sorry to wake you, babe," I said, smiling at her as she slowly opened her eyes and returned the smile. "Morning, Alex. What's up?" I explained that I needed to fly to LA for a sudden business meeting, though it was a fabrication, a believable one given my frequent travel. "All right, honey, I'll keep the bed warm. Back by Friday?" she asked. "Yeah, that's the plan. Just you and me," I replied. She chuckled and hugged me tightly, reassuring me of her presence. As I rode in the limo, I pondered Gina's possible involvement in the car incident. Her ease with deception made me question whether she was innocent or a skilled liar. I hoped for the former, but feared the latter. During the short flight to Los Angeles, I strategized my plan, prioritizing secrecy due to Jeff Denham's potential involvement. As the top security expert locally, I decided to bring in someone from outside the area. After landing, I bought a prepaid cell phone for anonymity and checked into the Beverly Wilshire Hotel. I then arranged to meet Dan Cameron, my former right-hand man, for lunch near his downtown office. Despite living in LA now, Dan and I maintained our friendship, meeting a few times a year. Over lunch, we caught up on old times and discussed recent events. And when the conversation turned serious, I leaned in to discuss matters further. "I need a couple of favors, Dan," I began. And seeing his interest, I explained, "I suspect issues within Apex. Do you trust any security firms?" "Certainly, Vertex Securities. Alan Newman leads it," Dan replied. "But what about Jeff Denham?" he added. "I need an outside perspective," I explained. "First, call Newman, but don't mention my name." Dan promptly made the call, arranging a meeting with Newman. Grateful, I asked him to keep our conversation confidential. Then, I asked a more personal question. "Have you ever seen Gina act suspiciously?" To my surprise, Dan hesitated, his face flushing. Eventually, he confessed, recounting Gina's flirtations with him before he moved away. He was reluctant to disclose, fearing disbelief or anger from me. Dan sat down briefly, wearing a troubled expression. "I get it, Dan, and I'm not upset with you," I reassured him. "You chose to ignore the subtle advances, and eventually she stopped?" "Exactly. It lasted a few weeks, then she went back to her usual self," Dan explained, adding, "It felt like she was testing me or something." "Was there anything else? Any other odd behavior?" I asked, to which Dan nodded, still looking uneasy. "Actually, yes. When we moved, Linda learned from Barbara Daniels, Josh's wife, that Josh, our CFO, was likely cheating with Gina. Intrigued, I inquired further. "How did Barbara find out?" Dan admitted uncertainty, mentioning Josh's suspicious behavior and potential encounters with Gina's perfume. He revealed that he and Linda debated whether to inform me, ultimately deciding against it to avoid unnecessary conflict. After our conversation, I harbored no resentment towards Dan. His accounts reinforced the suspicion that Gina might be involved in a scheme against me and my company. My call with Alan Newman was brief and to the point. I explained my need for a top-tier security firm for a confidential matter, emphasizing my desire for someone not affiliated with me or my acquaintances. Newman recommended Barry Asimov in San Diego, praising his intelligence, team, and trustworthiness. At my request, Newman connected me with Asimov and arranged a meeting for the following morning at 10 a.m., without disclosing my identity. Back at the hotel, I called Dan Cameron and asked him to rent a car from Hertz, ensuring it wouldn't be traceable. After a quick dinner, I had my usual late-night chat with Gina before heading to bed. The next morning, disguised in sweatpants, sunglasses, and a baseball cap, I traveled to the Hertz office at the Los Angeles airport. By 9:45, I arrived in San Diego and parked near the Asimov office. Despite Asimov's unimpressive appearance, I quickly realized his intelligence surpassed expectations. Feeling the need to confide, I directly addressed Asimov. "I require a top-notch security firm for a highly confidential and complex task," I explained. "This assignment involves extensive high-tech computer work and demands absolute discretion. I'm prepared to compensate generously, covering all expenses. The project may span weeks, and your fee could reach 7 figures. He gazed at me intently for a moment. "Why come to us? What makes you think we're capable?" "Alan Newman recommended you highly," I replied. "Why not use Newman, then?" he questioned. "He's excellent. But I need to cover my tracks. Once we unravel this, you'll understand. I have to be cautious. Newman contacted you without divulging my identity, making it challenging to trace back. After discussing initial arrangements, Asimov prompted, "Tell me the whole story. If it aligns with our capabilities, we're on board. I divulged everything: my identity, Apex's operations and worth, and the recent assassination attempt. Suspecting involvement from Gina and Denham, I recounted Dan Cameron's observations without mentioning his name. Asimov posed clarifying questions, displaying his expertise. "I'm familiar with Jeff Denham's reputation," he acknowledged. "If he's involved, we'll tread carefully." After further discussion, Asimov outlined a plan. "You need two things: detailed examination of your documents and investigation into Denham, your wife, and other Apex executives. David Carlos, my top computer expert, will handle the financial scrutiny. Vera Anderson will lead a surveillance team for the other aspect." Half an hour later, we gathered in a conference room, enjoying takeout sandwiches while discussing my predicament. Asimov took a back seat, allowing Carlos and Anderson to lead the discussion, occasionally chiming in with his insights. His sharp wit reassured me, and by mid-afternoon I headed back to Los Angeles, relieved that Asimov accepted a promissory note instead of an immediate large fee. Carlos planned to investigate Apex through my computer, which linked to the company's vital systems. He instructed me to memorize Asimov's website, URL. When alone in my office for over 2 hours, I would visit the site, download a program enabling Carlos to access and copy files from my computer and its network. Upon leaving, I'd delete the program, clear my browser history, covering my tracks. Though not foolproof, this method would likely go unnoticed unless my computer came under intense scrutiny. Carlos estimated that within 20 hours of web searching, he'd acquire the necessary data to assess Apex's status. Anderson's task was routine surveillance of Gina and Apex's top brass. We agreed against monitoring Denham, aware his security background would likely detect any surveillance, opting instead for discreet phone and credit card investigations. I cautioned against underestimating Denham's vigilance. He'd swiftly detect any overt surveillance. Vera proposed house audio-video recording, bug in Gina's purse and phone tap, ensuring secrecy. They assured quick, covert execution within 3 hours, including a sweep for existing surveillance. As for Gina's personal phone, Vera pledged to handle it at her tennis club locker. My role was to maintain normalcy, unsuspecting at work and home, while Asimov predicted a delay before another attempt on me. He advised caution, suggesting avoiding isolated areas and driving solo, even having Gina drive to work. I promised vigilance despite the seeming ease of his advice. Before parting ways, we devised a one-way communication method to reach Asimov, utilizing discarded cell phones. I'd call Larry Asimov, with the receptionist redirecting me to Barry. We agreed on a bi-daily check-in. Returning to the Beverly Wilshire, I informed Gina of my early return. She expressed her loneliness and anticipation for our reunion on Thursday night. Ending the call, I reflected on Gina's alleged plot. Despite her self-centered nature, I believed she loved me in her own manner. Our marriage lacked typical displays of affection, but we found contentment in our shared ambitions. Gina, although unemployed, remained active in her interests. Despite this, the evidence hinted at her involvement in the attempted homicide, driven by greed, a notion that unsettled me. If Dan Cameron's revelations were accurate, Gina might have ties to both Josh Daniels from Apex and my friend Jeff Denham. In essence, if my fears were valid, she embodied a monstrous, heartless figure. If she indeed had relations with Daniels, pursued Dan Cameron, and had links to Denham, it implied her central role in the ordeal. During the flight to San Jose, I pondered the possible outcomes. I believed I could convincingly feign ignorance around Gina for a time should she be deceiving me. Conversely, if my doubts were unfounded, I'd gladly welcome her love once more. However, if she were implicated in the attempt on my life, I had envisioned how I wanted the situation to unfold, and a part of me anticipated it. Our Thursday night reunion with Gina was notable for a few reasons. Firstly, the closeness was exceptional. Secondly, the evening was ordinary, devoid of any conspicuous behavior that hinted at guilt or apprehension on her part. She conversed as usual, discussing her tennis match and shopping ventures, showing no indication of my suspicions. Upon my arrival at the office on Friday, Jeff Denham had already phoned to announce his imminent visit. His eagerness was unsurprising. Likely he aimed to discuss the audit I'd requested and probe into my motivations. As he entered with a grin, extending a handshake, I pondered how he'd learned of my trip to LA. Perhaps Gina had mentioned it, though I refrained from raising suspicions by inquiring. Instead, I greeted him warmly, mentioning my time in LA and the uncertain outcome of a lead from Dan Cameron. Denham settled in across from me, reporting the audit's findings as routine, with minor accounting errors. He probed into my reason for the audit, his tone attempting nonchalance. Thankfully, I had anticipated the situation and had a prepared excuse. I initially dismissed it as nothing, but on Monday, Bert Williamson from 2K2 reached out. Apparently, one of their vice presidents heard vague rumors at a New York meeting about an attack on a Silicon Valley software firm involving fake subsidiaries funneling money. It sounded dubious, but since it had been a while since I requested an account check, I figured it was worth investigating. Apologies for the inconvenience, but it's better to stay informed. He seemed to relax, responding, "No problem, buddy. That's what we're here for." After his departure, I swiftly initiated Carlos's software to scrutinize Apex's finances and communications. Wanting to afford them ample time, I opted to dine at my desk, with Meredith kindly fetching lunch along with the day's newspaper, which I hadn't had a chance to read. Midway through my meal, an article on the Metro page caught my eye. Auto shop fire destroys 12 cars. Reading it closely, I learned that a blaze had erupted at Marshall Motors, consuming 12 vehicles and damaging several others. While not entirely unexpected given the circumstances, it still rattled me. I immediately phoned Dominic, wary of potential eavesdropping, and inquired about the incident. He assured me that everything was fine, but unfortunately confirmed my suspicions about my Lexus, which had been completely destroyed in the fire. "It's all right, Dominic. That's what insurance is there for. Can I swing by after work today, say around 6 p.m.? We agreed on the time, ending the call. While I doubted the security tapes at Marshall Motors had captured anything suspicious, I intended to have Asimov's team review them just to be thorough. Thankfully, Dominic had documented the brake line issue and snapped some photos. Whoever orchestrated the arson was skilled. Walking me through the scene as the authorities gathered evidence, Dominic noted, "They suspect foul play, but doubt they can prove it. Seems like that old Ford truck next to your Lexus had a gas leak, igniting a chain reaction. The blast engulfed the other cars." Gesturing toward the wreckage, he added, "There were surveillance cameras nearby, and I've copied the footage for you. It's in my office, tucked away with the coffee filters. Thank you, Dom. Now, I need another favor, a significant one." I requested that Dominic hold off until Monday before sending the surveillance footage and his initial report, including photos, to Barry Asimov's office. I repeated the address several times to ensure he remembered. I also left my rental car with Dominic, opting for cabs for the next few days. Picking them up from different locations on a whim reduces the likelihood of falling into a trap. I quickly dialed Larry and reached Barry Asimov within minutes. Not much had changed. Carlos had extracted data from my computer, but the process wasn't complete yet. I assured Barry I'd try to make it to the office. During the weekend, Vera Anderson's team swept my house for bugs, finding none and installed their own. They also cracked Gina's computer password and copied her files, planning to examine them later. I briefed Barry on the car fire incident, promising to provide documents and reports soon. We scheduled another call for early the following week. The weekend passed uneventfully. Gina and I stuck to our usual routine, sleeping in on Saturday, followed by breakfast cooked by Gina. We spent the day at the clubhouse with me playing golf and Gina relaxing by the pool with her friends. Dinner was at the club with friends, followed by more lovemaking moments at home. Sunday saw us pursuing our individual activities. I informed Gina that I had to spend part of the day at the office, a common occurrence. I requested a ride and headed to the club for tennis. Using my discarded cell phone, I alerted Barry, who assured me Vera would meet her operative in the locker room. While Gina played, I logged in, initiated the program, and let Carlos proceed. I pondered why I wasn't consumed by anger considering the apparent betrayal by my wife and best friend, Gina's flirtation with Josh Daniels and possibly others. Despite these revelations, my anger remained subdued. I recalled the saying, "Revenge is a dish best served cold," attributed to Pierre-Ambroise François Chaudelot de la Cloze in the 18th century. I compartmentalized my emotions, reserving judgment until I had concrete evidence. Gina picked me up around 5:30 after her activities, and we shared a quiet dinner at home, opting to watch recorded episodes of The Sopranos before retiring for the night. Monday passed without incident. In my office, I feigned work, ensuring David Carlos could complete the software setup. But during a Tuesday afternoon call with Barry from a downtown bar booth, I learned of significant progress from his team. "Firstly, your car was indeed arson," Barry began. "Two masked men punctured the Ford's gas tank, spreading gasoline around before igniting it." I inquired about Dominic's evidence, suggesting it could implicate the perpetrators. Barry agreed, but noted the challenge of linking it to Denham or my wife without further proof. Moving on, Barry disclosed David's findings on my computer. They suspect a year-long embezzlement scheme totaling around $2 million. David believes he can trace it back to a specific office computer with more time. Concerned about recovering the funds, I asked about the possibility of reimbursement, to which Barry expressed skepticism, advising recourse through legal action if the culprit can be identified. Despite the financial loss being significant, I found solace in it being less severe than attempted homicide. Any updates on Gina? Did Vera's team find the bugs and access her computer files? He cleared his throat. Things aren't looking good, Alex. I won't sugarcoat it. It seems she's likely tied to 2 of the 3 Apex guys you mentioned, Josh Daniels and Eddie Kreitler. Also, on Sunday, she made a call to Denham from her cell phone, confirming their relationship. Jesus, I muttered, feeling the weight of the revelation sink in. Barry's voice broke my somber thoughts. Give us a couple more days to sort this out. Vera's team is tracking Gina's cell phone, purse bug, and the bugs in your house. They're also investigating her cell phone records and credit cards. Did you have any idea about the cards under her maiden name? Hell no, I replied, still stunned. I understand this is tough. Can you hang tight a little longer while we conclude our investigation? I know I have to, Barry, so I'll manage. Do you think there's a risk of another attack? After a brief pause, he said, Possibly, but they'll be cautious given the recent car incident. If you take reasonable precautions, avoid secluded places, you should be safe. Should I assign some men to watch over you? No, it's too risky. Denham's associates might catch on. I'll look after myself. I'll check in on Thursday. I'm sorry, Alex, he said softly. Yeah, me too, I replied before hanging up. Wednesday marked one of the most dismal days of my adult life. I faced the grim reality of my failing marriage and the betrayal of my closest friend, harboring the unsettling knowledge that one or both of them sought my downfall. Stuck in the office, I feigned productivity, engaging in sporadic conversations with Meredith, while my mind churned with thoughts of vengeance. Though the specifics hinged on Barry's findings, the broad strokes of my retaliatory plan were already etched in my mind, fueling a growing sense of indignation and anticipation. Come Thursday, I delayed my call to Asimov, allowing his team ample time for investigation. By 4 p.m., I opted for a haircut and then retreated to a diner, hunkering down with a cup of coffee to dial Barry. Our conversation stretched nearly an hour, peppered with queries, clarifications, and strategizing. With the call concluded, he wished me luck, and we bid farewell. Armed with newfound information, I resolved to press forward. That evening, I maintained my facade at home, reciprocating Gina's affection as usual. Over a dinner of Carmelita's fried chicken and a movie, I contemplated the imminent end of our physical closeness, perhaps even our emotional connection altogether. Wanting to avoid Gina, I left early on Friday and grabbed a quick breakfast. Opting for Gina's BMW convertible on the way to the office, I aimed for a safer commute today. Though Gina would likely be annoyed by the disappearance of her car, by day's end, it would be the least of her concerns. Upon Meredith's arrival at 9 o'clock, I summoned her to my office, presenting her with a list of tasks. I'll need to adjust my schedule today, I informed her. Could you handle setting this up for me? Perusing the list, her eyes widened in surprise. Expecting an explanation, she received only silence from me. Nevertheless, she nodded and pledged to take care of it. With a smile, I watched her exit. My morning remained uneventful except for a 10 o'clock meeting with Nancy Leggett, a friend and principal at Leggett & Hine, a long-standing PR firm for Apex. Nancy, an attractive and witty woman around my age, engaged in an hour-long discussion in my office, with the radio masking our conversation. At lunchtime, I enjoyed a sandwich and soda at my desk, preparing for the anticipated events of the afternoon. Around 1 o'clock, Meredith informed me that Jeff Denham was trying to reach me urgently. I instructed her to inform him that I couldn't meet until 4, as previously arranged. I pondered whether Denham had bugged my office, considering the possibility that he might have overheard my conversation with Nancy Leggett. Nonetheless, I relished the idea of his frustration. Entering the conference room a few minutes before 1 o'clock, I found it arranged precisely as I had specified, with the necessary equipment set up and ready to go. Hello, I greeted. It's Arthur, right? He grinned, acknowledging the recognition. Yes, Mr. McMillan. Arthur Wentner, everything's set up. Shall I run it or just give you a demo? Just show me, please, Arthur. I want it running all day for my meetings here. He positioned it to cover the designated area, and we tested it briefly. All was well. The cartridge lasts 6 hours, so you're good to go, Mr. McMillan. After thanking Arthur, I adjusted my laptop and reclined. Moments later, Josh Daniels entered, looking hesitant. "Josh, come in. You're fine with recording this, right?" He seemed puzzled. "Alex, What's up? We'll discuss in a sec. Did Meredith explain? This stays between us, okay?" He nodded, still uneasy. "Yeah, sure. Alex, is everything all right with the filming?" "I suppose, but about—" I cut him off. "Wait, Josh, you'll understand soon." I leaned back, maintaining a neutral expression, observing his discomfort. Then I confronted him. "Josh, I know about you and my wife." He grew tense, struggling to appear composed. His gaze avoided mine. "Alex, I don't know what—" "No need to pretend. I have the evidence." I confidently delivered the lie, tapping the thick manila folder beside me. "But now, I want the truth from you. You're in deep trouble, and lying will only make it worse." I've faced tough negotiations, but Josh appeared utterly miserable. I relished his discomfort, waiting for his attempt to evade what he'd done. After a pause, he spoke. "Alex, Can we turn the camera off?" "No, keep going, Josh. I'm listening." "When did it start? How? And how could you justify this affair with the boss's wife?" He kept his gaze down. "It began 4 years ago. Lasted 3 months. Gina seduced me. It's that simple. Linda and I knew you both for years. Gina flirted. Who wouldn't? Then at a Christmas party, she heavily flirted with me. I didn't believe it until she called me, asking to come over when you were away. I tried to leave, but she insisted, locked the door, and confessed her desires. I knew it was wrong, but I stayed. She led me to the bedroom, and we spent 2 hours together." Josh slumped in defeat, his head resting on his hands as he gazed at the floor. "How long did it last, and how did it end?" "That's how it went. Then one day she abruptly ended it, not even being particularly kind. I think it was because I refused to comply with her wishes." "What did she want?" I inquired, breaking my silence since the confession began. He met my gaze. "She wanted me to set up fake accounts to drain money from Apex. It was all about the money, Alex, nothing else. She believed you had millions, and she wanted a big share for herself. She'd ask me questions in bed about our accounting systems, if creating fake accounts was possible, the risks involved, and so on. At first, I thought she was joking, but she kept bringing it up. In the end, I told her I wouldn't do it." He sat up straight. "I won't lie anymore, Alex. I didn't refuse out of morals or loyalty to you or Apex. By then, I was willing to do anything just to be with Gina. But I couldn't see a way to do what she wanted without risking getting caught. And I wasn't willing to go to jail, not even for her. When Gina realized I wouldn't comply, she ended things. Fortunately, it happened before Linda could find proof of the affair. I repeatedly denied it, fabricating stories and swearing it was just work-related projects. Although Linda probably didn't fully believe me, she eventually dropped it. I made every effort to make it up to her, and thankfully we're still together." We sat silently for a few minutes. Much of what Josh disclosed was new to me. Barry's team had uncovered evidence of the affair, numerous phone calls and some suggestive emails. But Josh's revelation that Gina initiated it and her desire to embezzle from the company were surprises. I rose and dismissed Josh, instructing him to leave for the weekend and keep our discussion confidential. He responded with resignation and fear, agreeing to reconvene on Monday and return home to his family in the meantime. I spoke with Eddie Kreitler around 1:30 p.m. Eddie advanced within Apex, holding positions in global sales and marketing before becoming my second-in-command in operations. He confirmed Gina approached him several months post her split with Josh, a period exceeding 6 months. Being single, they didn't feel the need for extreme caution. Eddie revealed Gina broached the idea of embezzling from the company gradually, initially as a joke. Over time, it evolved into a serious proposition. He explored various options, but found none feasible, citing the company's stringent financial controls. When he confessed his reluctance to Gina, their association ended. When I confronted Bernard Eisenhart, Apex's treasurer, about his involvement with my wife, his reaction was one of surprise rather than distress. He insisted I should discuss it with Gina, not him. Despite presenting him with pictures, he remained firm in his denial. Barry confirmed there was no evidence linking him to Gina except for one phone call. Bernie recounted how Gina lured him to a supposed surprise party where she made advances. However, he resisted due to my marital status and left promptly afterward. He opted not to disclose this incident to me earlier, fearing I would blame him. Understanding his perspective, I assured him I believed his account, clarifying that I recently discovered Gina's infidelity with other company employees. Bernie's initial anger subsided into astonishment, upon learning about Gina's involvement with 2 other men. He even recalled rumors about her and Josh from years ago but had dismissed them. After our discussion, I assured him of my trust, reiterated that I hadn't accused him, and stressed the importance of confidentiality. After he left, Meredith informed me about Jeff Denham's urgency to meet immediately. Despite the scheduled appointment for 4 o'clock, Denham was insistent. I instructed Meredith to give me 5 minutes before letting him in. Reflecting on what I had just learned, I realized the gravity of the situation. Discovering that my best friend wanted me dead was not an everyday occurrence, and I relished the opportunity to confront him. When Jeff Denham entered the conference room, he appeared visibly shaken as though he had consumed an excess of caffeine. Despite his attempt to appear composed, his voice betrayed his nervousness. "Hey Alex, what's up?" His tone, though carefully casual, carried a hint of anxiety. "Hey Dowdle, thanks for dropping by. Want some coffee?" He declined and inquired about the video camera in the room. With a smile, I explained its purpose for recording today's meetings. He seemed apprehensive, but voiced no objections. As Denham puzzled over the situation, I noted Meredith's silence and Bernie Eisenhardt's cryptic nod earlier. Turning the laptop toward Denham, I revealed a still frame from a recent bedroom video. His shock was palpable as he met my gaze. Before he could respond, I struck him with my fist under his eye. He recoiled, crashing to the floor as the chair slid backward. Standing over him, I removed my glove, feeling the pain but relieved it wasn't more severe. With a grim smile, I waited for Denham to regain his composure. It took him a while to regain consciousness, and when he did, he looked around warily, then moved away from me, his expression a mix of confusion and caution. "Think you can handle more?" I quipped, my tone casual. "No need, Alex," he muttered, eyeing the door as if considering escape. "Forget it, Dowdall. Guards are outside. You're staying put," I assured him. As we sat in tense silence, he seemed to mull over his predicament, likely hoping I was unaware of the full extent of his actions. "Get back to the table," I commanded. "What's coming next will hurt a lot worse." He complied, keeping his gaze fixed on me. "You're a disgrace," I berated him. "Entertaining my wife, stealing from me, and plotting my homicide." His reaction was one of shock and alarm. "Gina confessed it all," I lied confidently. "You thought eliminating me would complete the betrayal, didn't you?" "Alex, it's not true," he pleaded desperately. "I admit to the affair with Gina, no denying that now. But the idea to steal and eliminate was all hers. I tried to talk her out of it, but eventually went along. She initiated everything." He confessed after some silence, detailing how Gina persuaded him into the affair, and then suggested stealing money from me. Unlike others involved, Denham complied, embezzling $1.8 million over 7 months. But Gina wanted more, claiming my wealth justified it. Denham spoke openly now, expressing remorse for his actions. She wanted more, said $1 million or $2 million wasn't enough, it wasn't fair. I closed the account and covered my tracks. A month later, she talked about eliminating you, wanting us to be together and enjoy your money. She persisted every time we met, painting a vivid picture of our future once you were gone. "And you believed her?" He sighed heavily. "I was a fool, Alex. I convinced myself she loved me. I held on, but she started hinting that if I didn't comply, we might not be together. After weeks of this, I felt trapped. Gina is a cold-blooded monster. Once she got the idea, she wouldn't let go. So, I found someone to tamper with the brake line. He assured me it could be done without suspicion. He looked at me, worn out. I know you'll never forgive me. How could you? But I can't believe I did it. It's like I was someone else, like Gina had control over me. I followed her instructions like a puppet." I didn't need to ask if he'd try again. The answer was clear from the video Asimov had sent me. His voice strained. He admitted she wanted to. I persuaded him to wait, but she persisted. He broke down, confessing everything, including the offshore accounts where he stashed the money, except for the $60,000 Gina had already spent. Around 4:30, I handed him over to the guards. Then I returned to the conference room, awaiting Gina's arrival at 5 o'clock. Each revelation sank in deeper. My wife wasn't just betraying me and stealing, she aimed to ruin me. How could I have been so blind to her true nature after 8 years together? Gina sauntered into the conference room, fashionably late as usual, appearing glamorous, yet slightly irked. "Sweetheart, what's with all this? Meredith practically ordered me here, but she hasn't spilled a thing. Is there some company drama? And why did you leave me stranded without a car this morning?" Observing her closely, I detected her faux annoyance masking genuine concern. Likely she and Denham had been frantically communicating today, trying to decipher the situation.
Darling, please sit down. This isn't easy for me.
I feigned emotional struggle, silently relishing every moment. After a pregnant pause, during which Gina's knee trembled nervously, I addressed her. Gina, I know about your infidelity. How could you betray me like this? I believed you loved me. She tried to compose herself, but her eyes widened and she tensed. Swiftly, a mix of sadness and empathy flashed across her face. Impressive, but expected. Sweetie, I'm so sorry. I never meant to hurt you. It's just... You were often away and She broke off, tears welling up. Convincing. I might have softened if I weren't privy to the truth. Still crying, she reached for my hand. Alex, Can you forgive me? I can't bear to lose you. I don't know, Gina. I just don't know. Then, after a pause, tell me everything. When it started, how it unfolded, and why. Above all, why did you do it? Oh, darling, please, let's not delve into it. We can overcome this, I promise. I'll make it right. No, Gina, I replied, feigning a strained voice. If we're to move forward, you must be honest with me now. When did it begin? How long did it continue? I had her dangling by a thread, relishing the control. She was unsure which lover I knew about. By framing her affair in the past tense, I left her guessing, potentially confessing to a tryst I might not even know about. Reluctantly, she started, As I said, Alex, You were often away and I felt neglected. I know it's unfair. You've worked tirelessly, built a successful company for us both, but I succumbed to his advances, I suppose. And then I chuckled inwardly. A valiant effort, Gina, but you're not off the hook yet. When was this, Gina? I need specifics. Abruptly, she rose, attempting to embrace me with tear-filled eyes. Alex, I'm so sorry. Holding her at arm's length, I pressed, When was it? I watched her mental calculations flicker in her eyes. She sighed, settling into the chair beside me. A little over 4 years ago, it was Josh Daniels, she admitted. I smirked to myself. Nice try, Gina. Too bad you don't know there's no right choice. Irritation peeked through her facade of sadness as she realized she had no alternative. It had lasted for months. I don't know why, Alex. I lost control. Eventually, I ended it with Josh. It was tearing me apart. I sobbed throughout, and Josh, I cut her off with a shout. You were unfaithful with Josh, too. The panic in her widened eyes was palpable as she pleaded. I don't understand, baby. Eddie Kreitler wasn't the only one, I accused. You slept with 2 of my employees. What were you thinking? She tried to interject, but my agitation wouldn't allow it. How do we fix this? How can I trust you again? Everyone at Apex must be laughing behind my back. The boss's wife takes care of the employees. Who else have you been involved with? The janitor? No, baby, just 2, she swore. How can I believe that? I demanded. You've been involved with everyone I know. Dan Cameron, Archie, Peter, Dowdle. How can I trust you? Seeing her chance, she rose and took my hands. Alex, it was only those 2, years ago. I've been faithful since and will be forever. Silence filled the room. I stared at her, masking the anger with sadness. Okay, Gina, I said slowly. So you cheated, but then decided to be faithful again, right? Her eyes held a glimmer of hope. Yes, baby, she said softly. Well, there's one more thing, I said, pushing the laptop toward her. Can you tell me what? With a keystroke, the video played. Jeff's head between Gina's thighs, her pleasure-filled cries filled the room. Oh yes, Dowdle, do it, she moaned. Gina surprised me. She didn't recoil from the laptop like it was a snake. No attempt to flee, no shriek, just a quick, oh, choked out almost immediately. Then, after a pause, she shut the laptop and turned to me. Her face transformed from shock to anger, eyes gleaming and mouth twisted into a strained grin. Okay, Alex, you caught me. Congratulations. What do you want me to admit? Yes, I had fun with Dowdle, and he was better than you could ever be. Really, Gina? Is that why you tried to ruin me? My question rattled her. She froze, staring at me before managing a weak, What? I have no clue what you're talking about. Is that so? I murmured. I opened the laptop, tapped a few keys, and showed her the screen. Our kitchen appeared, with Gina and Denham in bathrobes at the table. Gina spoke. I don't care, Dowdle. If the car didn't crash, we'll try again. We need to destroy it differently. Can't we poison it? I silenced the computer and grinned at Gina. I wish I had that video, darling. It'll be tough for you to deny in court. I stared into her cold eyes, seeing her frantic attempts to escape. She abandoned any pretense of remorse or affection. Finally, her voice dripped with contempt. You won't dare go to the police, Alex. You'd be a laughingstock. So would Apex. The head of a billion-dollar company, his wife entertaining the employees. You'd be a worldwide joke. Gina sat there, smug and contemptuous. I dialed Meredith and requested Nancy Leggett. When she entered, she regarded my wife with disdain. Nancy, my dear wife, believes it would be detrimental to arrest her for grand larceny and attempted homicide. Care to share what you told me this morning? Nancy grinned widely. Absolutely, Alex. This saga of Gina and Denham's wicked scheme will dominate the headlines. It has all the elements. Money, infidelity, attempted homicide, a stunning woman, betrayal. It'll surpass Paris Hilton, Anna Nicole Smith. Gina will be the scandal of the month, and Apex will gain unprecedented publicity, worth more than $500 million in ads. You'll be on Larry King, Today Show, everywhere. A virtuous businessman deceived by a conniving woman and her puppet. After the trial, Apex will shine in Businessweek Wall Street Journal. You'll earn Entrepreneur of the Year. The company could gain $100 million in business. You'll receive thousands of letters from women vying to be the next Mrs. McMillan. It's a boon for Apex, for you. Gina might not find it amusing now, but you're about to enrich a wealthy man even more as his PR representative. I couldn't concoct anything better. With a wink, Nancy exited. Gina relaxed in her chair, her smile deep and sardonic. Maybe for the first time in all the years I'd known her, she seemed completely beaten. I dialed Meredith's number. Meredith, you need to call the cops. The following 14 months might have somewhat balanced out what had happened earlier, or maybe not. It's tough to gauge, but they certainly had their share of drama. The police slapped Gina and Denham with charges including attempted homicide, conspiracy to commit homicide, fraud, conspiracy to commit fraud, grand larceny, and a handful of other offenses. Apex's legal team promptly launched a civil case to reclaim the embezzled funds, which we knew the location of thanks to Denham's confession. And naturally, I promptly initiated divorce proceedings on grounds of infidelity. Thankfully, due to the legal actions, all of Denham's and Gina's accounts linked to mine were frozen by the time they were out on bail. They couldn't afford high-priced attorneys and had to settle for public defenders for a while. Not a pleasant experience. I ousted Gina from the house and easily obtained a restraining order from the court. The video of her and Denham discussing a second attempt on my life was quite convincing. She persuaded Susan, one of her tennis pals, to put her up in Susan's guest house temporarily. Gina made no effort to reach out to me, not that I anticipated or desired it. She must have realized there was nothing she could say to alter the situation. The Monday following Gina's moment of truth, I summoned Josh and Eddie and let them go. Neither seemed particularly shocked. Eddie just requested that if a potential employer contacted me for a reference, I'd vouch for his solid work at Apex. I readily agreed. Josh attempted to strike a bargain. Help me land a decent job and I'll testify against Gina in her trial, he proposed. I chuckled and showed him the door. I reminded him that I already had his admission of infidelity and her attempt to coerce him into theft on tape. If he refused to testify, the prosecutors would simply subpoena him. I've appointed Bernie Eisenhardt as Josh's CFO, confident he'll excel. I've tasked him with interviewing candidates for his own replacement as treasurer and for Eddie's role. About 7 months later, Gina and Denham's trial commenced, and it was quite the spectacle. Spanning nearly 3 weeks, I attended court sessions intermittently, not feeling compelled to be there every day. Predictably, they couldn't refute their actions, each defense attorney striving to paint the other as the primary culprit. Gina's allure and courtroom demeanor worked wonders on the male jurors. However, the damning video clearly depicted her urging Dowdle to orchestrate another attempt on my life. Not even Gina could overcome that evidence. They were both convicted on roughly 8 charges, including the primary ones. Throughout the trial, the media attention enabled Gina to secure multiple contracts for magazine and TV interviews, affording her the means to hire a high-priced lawyer. The new legal team has filed appeals, successfully stalling the sentencing process thus far. However, Gina and Dowdle are looking at 10 to 15 years behind bars. All the embezzled funds, except for $72,000, were returned to Apex. Given Denham's defunct security firm, I needed someone to fill that role for Apex. During my trip to Los Angeles to express gratitude to Barry Asimov, he recommended hiring David Carles, who was keen on relocating to the Bay Area, a decision you've witnessed pay off. I believe you'll be pleased with offering him a contract, especially with you as his main client, fostering growth for his business. So I extended a job offer to Carlos, and things seem to be progressing smoothly thus far. While visiting Asimov's office, he surprised me with another video unrelated to the threat from Gina and Denham. Come to the screening room, Alex. I have something you might find interesting. To my astonishment and amusement, the footage revealed Gina in bed with Charlie Pemberton, my attorney. Despite being nearly 60 and seemingly not providing Gina much satisfaction, she had seduced him a couple of months earlier and enlisted him to find loopholes in our prenup. Unsurprisingly, given Charlie's legal prowess, he had drafted the prenup himself, he hadn't made much headway. Nonetheless, it didn't deter him from seizing any opportunity Gina presented. I took particular pleasure in publicly accusing Charlie of unethical conduct, raising as much noise as possible. The California Board of Legal Ethics had no option but to disbar him. Furthermore, I sued him and managed to retrieve around $240,000 from his savings, which I then donated to charity. All of this brought me immense satisfaction. Regarding Apex and myself, everything unfolded precisely as Nancy Leggett had anticipated. Initially, there was a surge of media coverage on cable news channels and in tabloids. I made appearances on CNN, featured in Fortune magazine's COVID section, graced the front page of the National Enquirer, and appeared in various other outlets. Nancy had to hire 3 additional staff members to manage the increased workload. We convened almost daily to strategize and assess which interviews and opportunities were worth pursuing. In the first half year following the article's publication, Apex's business expanded by nearly 20%. Nancy's prediction about receiving letters from women also proved accurate. We amassed over 8,000 letters, with more pouring in consistently. After reviewing the initial few hundred, some accompanied by suggestive or explicit photos, I delegated the task of responding to them to one of my interns. It's quite possible this guy has a more active romantic life than I do. Additionally, local divorcees and single women reached out. I received propositions from more women than I ever imagined existed. Yet, to my surprise, I discovered I wasn't particularly intrigued. Gina brought me immense carnal satisfaction until our relationship unraveled. I went on dates with 4 women I found attractive, but soon realized that a promiscuous lifestyle wasn't for me. After collaborating closely with Nancy for a few weeks, I realized she was the one I wanted to pursue romantically. We've been dating for nearly a year now, with neither of us feeling rushed to tie the knot, although it may happen eventually. On my recent birthday, Nancy surprised me with a special gift. We spent Saturday night at her place, watching an old Humphrey Bogart movie before indulging in closeness on Sunday morning. She let me sleep in while she prepared breakfast, which she then brought to the bedroom on a large tray. When I woke up, I found her standing there in her robe holding breakfast. After we ate, she teased, "Is your present ready? I'm actually wearing it under my robe." Curiously, I raised my eyebrows, but she only grinned mischievously. "Ready?" she asked, unveiling a white t-shirt adorned with a scanned image of a smiling Gina, likely taken from a photo Nancy found at my home. Beneath the image, in bold letters, it read, "I survived a monster." I couldn't help but burst into laughter. Then I pulled her close, saying, "Come here, you."